I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits.
Welcome to WTC Squadcast, a podcast focusing on international matters, tournaments, communities, and the World Team Championship. The WTC is a proud partner of the T-Sports Network, Best Coast Pairings, and is sponsored by the Army Painter. If you'd like to support the podcast and the WTC, please visit our Patreon at www.patreon.com/WTC Squadcast. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the WTC Squadcast Into the Squad. In this podcast we get a deeper insight into how the specific nations work, how do they form their teams, select their captains and prepare for the event in general. Tonight my guest is Sami from Finland and we are going to be learning more about the Finland community. Hello Sami, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, nice to be here.
Glad to have you on. Can you introduce yourselves for us, please?
All right, I'm Sami Keinonen, and I'm 40 years old, so one of the older players in WTC and in our community also, even though our community is a quite aged group. I'm now co-captain of Team Finland, and I played a long time.
So when did you, long time as in 15, 20 years?
A lot longer than that. So I started, considering I'm 40 now, so I started playing Warhammer and Rogue Trader, I guess, when I was about 10 years old, could be even 9 years old.
So you actually started playing at the very first edition then?
Yes, exactly. And the Warhammer back then was more of a battle game, and Warhammer 40k we used to just like a role play it and play with the Rogue Trader miniatures, but we were kids, so we would play outside and in the forest or in the sandboxes and everywhere with Space Marines and stuff like that.
So I didn't actually never looked into it, but was it really a role playing game instead of a miniatures game?
No, but like we were kids, so like we
okay.
made those rules weren't back then for 40k weren't really like at least to us it didn't seem like a war game as such. You know, you just had a bunch of rules like scrapped together, and we just made of them what we wanted, you know, and then we did battle, and those battles, you know, they lasted as long as the other guy had miniatures left, you know. there was no turn count, you know, you play until the last model is dead.
So it's more like just a death match, ignore the missions, just play.
It was great, you know. Good memories.
So how did you get from the sandbox into the Finnish captain of the WTC? What is the journey?
All right, well, it is a long journey, obviously, and I played a lot of games, you know, other than miniature games. I also played video games, but I've always been interested in like any type of competitive gaming, and so you know, when I started growing up, you know, I started playing miniature games in tournaments, and I played Warhammer Fantasy a lot, and I played 40k a lot. Some, you know, in some editions, maybe more than the other one, you know, there could have been some edition of 40k that we didn't play because we were playing Warhammer Fantasy, and then, you know, it could change and stuff like that. And then, of course, later on, you know, in my 20s and so forth, you know, going to my 30s, you know, the everything got more serious, and there was more tournaments, and but like as of recently, I came back to the Finnish 40k community at the start of 8th edition, when there was like a big hype about 40k becoming more competitive and the rules becoming better and more clear and more fair and stuff. And actually a lot of these older players, you know, who used to play before started to come back, so there was a lot of hype to it. And that's when I came back and started playing tournaments, and I played with a variety of different armies and factions and done well. And then I joined the Finnish ETC team for the Novi Sad Serbia ETC, two years ago, the one before COVID.
Yeah, 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my first ETC. Of course, I know all these guys the Finnish guys who've been going to ETC a lot longer than that. We got the group is like a tightly knit group. Some of the players, they might have gone already 10 times to the ETC. For example, Joni, our previous captain, he's been a captain numerous times, and a real veteran, unlike me. So I just got one ETC behind me. And but yeah, and then the COVID era started, and it was quite heavy for the Finnish community because of let's say, unlike in England or the US, all of the tournaments got cancelled for a long time, and some gaming rooms, and some places where people used to meet up and train, they got closed as well. So it was a really difficult time. And then we had a training up to the we had an interim captain who tried to train the team to the first WTC, but that got cancelled. And then afterwards, we had the process that of selecting the next season's captains, and that's when I put myself up and my co-captain Marco for vote, and we got chosen. So that's pretty much how it happened. And it's been a difficult year because of the COVID restrictions. I mean, the tournaments even after COVID, basically, they are still going slow in Finland, and we haven't had the normal amount of training as we would have wanted to.
Yeah, it seems like it's a difficult way to rekindle in some countries. A few other countries seems to have just gotten back into track without a problem, but with a few other countries, it looks like it will take several years for everything to go back to normal, which is it's the case in some countries. It's what it is, and you can't really do much about that. But I have a question about you. You said that 2019 was your first ETC, but you were a competitive player beforehand. So what's your tournament history before that? Did you attend any tournaments in general, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was playing in Finland before that, and I have a very good track record. I won a bunch of tournaments. I don't know how many, but a bunch of them, maybe a majority of them. But I mean, I was playing the best factions. I had a competitive mindset. So I mean, if Space Marines were the new thing, I would play them, and during the Iron Hands era and whatever. That time I played in Sweden in one major in Umeå, which I won. But I played Elder, during the good times of Alaitok and everything. So pretty basic, like playing the best factions and enjoying the easy games from that and doing well. So yeah, I was playing a lot, and but ETC was of course a step up to me. First I wasn't even very interested at first because I knew that it would be like a different type of training program, different experience. I was just playing the singles, but the more and more I gave it a thought, and my friends were explained to me and told me stories from the ETC. I started to understand, what is special about that, and how the whole, the competitive aspect changes when you have a team, and learn how much better it is actually. It is a much more rewarding experience to win with a team than in singles, because you're like you're not just playing the best army and then doing well enough to win. Instead you might be playing a mediocre army and just overperforming and really being a hero for your team. There's a lot of different different aspects that are really exciting.
Yeah, that seems to be a repeating pattern. What you just said is that nobody has ever told me, and this is like the 20th podcast with this, or even just in my regular chats with people, nobody has come out and told me, what, actually single player is better than team play. After, if that person has if they haven't attended in any of the ETCs or WTCs or the ATCs in America, anybody who has attended any team tournament always comes out and say team tournaments are better without a contention, because just like you said, it's always about it's rare for somebody to be like mentally prepare themselves. I'm going to lose this match, and it's you take that responsibility willingly for your team, and then you just try to not lose as bad.
Yeah, and it is not clear which one is easier. You know, like you can play the best faction, but then, or one of them, and you're expected to get a lot of 20-0 results or whatnot, but you will have a lot of pressure on a lot of expectations on you. For example, I in the ETC in Novi Sad, I played Elder Flyers with a lot of indirect. So obviously it is a very straightforward army to play. But on the other hand, if you would fail with it, you would let down the entire team, because they're expecting you to get those points like you normally do. So I don't know which one is easier in the team format, playing a good army or playing a bad army, because with one of the weaker armies, like maybe you get 7 points or you get 6 and everybody's fine with that. All of a sudden, and one day you get 11 and now you're a hero. But on the other hand, you played a good army, you get 20, everybody's like, oh, all right, whatever, good. But if you do get actually 10 or even worse, if you actually lose, you're the culprit of the whole loss. That's your fault.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. It's like it's as when you're a defender and you're playing the match and your match takes long and you're the last person who's playing and you only need a 6 out of 20 points to win or to get a draw or whatever. That's
exactly
that. Like you said, when you're an attacker, when you're playing one of the top teams, nobody cares if you get a 20-0. If you get a 19-1, it's a problem. Let alone losing. Like maybe when there was seized initiative, you could have blamed the seas, but now the game is much more plannable, and you are expected to get a certain score. And it's just, like you said, it is exciting, and there's also pressure on both the top army players and the lower army players.
Yeah. And it's a different atmosphere altogether, aside from the factions. It's also when you're playing for a team, you got guys cheering for you, you feel really, really good after you win a tight game that maybe decides the match for your country. And it is just a different feeling than winning anything in a singles, Sometimes in a singles tournament, you might be such a big, favorite already because of your army and maybe because of your tournament experience that once you win, you don't really feel anything, you just think like, all right, well, I won like I'm supposed to, it doesn't, you do not get the same feeling of accomplishment, but the countries, who do well in the ETC and now the WTC, that is a great accomplishment for them, every year, the winners, and the top 3 countries.
Yeah, Finland is one of those countries I'm checking your history, by the way. I have the history page in front of me for the Finland, which have attended for 10 years straight, which is an accomplishment in of itself. And there were a few times where the Finnish team got really close to getting a podium, like in 2017, 5th, 2013, 4th, and even 2019, the one you were. You got 7th, which is...
And, well, I could talk about that.
Please do.
Well, first of all, about the previous years, I have to say that the Finnish team is, they're all excellent players. They're as experienced as anybody gets. They also played 20 odd years. And the couple of younger guys we have, they live and breathe the game. And they can do pairings in their sleep. So it is not a large group, but it is a good group. So I mean, there's been some like turns of events that they could have done even better, if they got more lucky at certain points. But 2019 was interesting because we had a quite good team and a pretty good preparation, and we drew England for the first round, and that was a tight game. There was I won my match with Matt Robertson. I played Elder against Knights. I won 20-0. And we won another match that we expected to win. But then a couple of matches, they just like there were certain moments that just, I wouldn't say luck, because all of the England players are great players, but just small things went wrong, and we ended up losing that match. Not so majorly, but we lost. And then, well, after that, we got ourselves back together, and we won until the last game. We won out all the matches until the last match of the tournament, which was a story in itself, because we had looked at the pairings, which team we would going to get, and looked like we were ended up playing against Team USA, and we were very, very confident that we will win that match and get a podium in the tournament, most likely, because of our pairings and our matchups, and we were confident. A tough match, but the one we would win, or could win. But then something happened, and in the Russian match, in the penultimate round, that the Russian team got a penalty, I think against England. They got some team penalties, which ended up like last minute changing the order of the teams.
Oh.
And then how is this is forever a mystery, because I don't remember all the details right now, but I recommend you reading up on that history, because it was a very weird situation. They got a team penalty that ended up changing the matchups of every team, I mean the pairings, and so basically I was it 15 or 20 minutes before a match should start, we were told we are not playing against USA, we are playing against Russia. And basically we had been sitting on that table thinking about how we're gonna pair that match and who's gonna win against who. And then we were told, no, you're playing against the Russians. And that year Russia was a fantastic team, they played very well. And they had very unorthodox lists. So what happened?
They did get second place.
Exactly, and they had very unorthodox lists. So I mean, they weren't, let's say, the UK-US meta, or the super major meta, they just made their list like they liked them. And it was to be fair, it was like a hole in our preparation, that we did not really take their list very seriously. We just looked at, okay, this is shit, what is this? This is some shit, and like that. And then walked into that match with a bad preparation, but also no preparation time. For example, some of our English friends, they said that the best time in that tournament to play against Russia is the morning game, because you have the entire evening and the entire night to prepare for those players, but also for those lists. But we had like 15 minutes, so we went in and we got destroyed by them. I mean, we lost every match except one, and I ended up losing my only match of the tournament as well. I lost with Elder Flyers against Grey Knights, and well, that was a horror match for me as well. The mission was terrible. This was the infamous deadlock mission, that if you get the bad Maelstrom cards and you can't score them, you will not draw any more cards.
Yeah, you can't discard fast enough.
Yeah, and I ended up drawing 2 defense on his side of the table, which were impossible to me. So even though I tabled, basically, I think I did table every model he had. I lost 20-0 the last match, and but it made no difference. I mean, we lost every match except one in our final, and that ended up costing us the potential podium finish in that year. But I mean, we don't blame anybody. We blame ourselves. I mean, if we just win against Russia, that's it. You go to the WTC, you go to ETC, you have to be able to beat everybody. So no excuses there. But it was really a weird situation that the matchups ended up changing like last minute like that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, because I was a player in that year, although I was a chairman of the ETC, during the event, I didn't really pay attention to the organization because I couldn't. I was a player. But that is interesting, and you are definitely correct about if you want to win the event, you'll have to prepare that you can. You'll have to prepare in a way that you can match with, if like every strong player, every strong team. Sorry, in the tournament. That because most likely you will. In this format, in 2022 format, we will have group stages. So it's you at least know 3 pairings ahead of time, and you can prepare for the day one very very well.
Yes.
But after that, it's probably like there is a very very good chance you guys will be at the top because you are a accomplished team. You are like the seed one, and then who knows that maybe you'll get next 4 matches as England, USA, France, and Germany or something. It is highly likely.
Yeah, this year I think our challenges are a little bit different than in the other years they used to be. We do not have all of the players that we would like to have this year due to real life situations. A lot of us are getting kids and family and other stuff like that. So quite a few of those guys from previous ETCs are not in the team right now. But it doesn't mean the guys we have are weaker players per se, but a lot less experienced in these big moments, playing against these big countries and these big teams. And also, in addition to that, we have the challenge of this COVID situation. The training hasn't been as we wanted, so we are struggling with consistency, and playing consistently on the level because you really do have to win every match to win the WTC. So you cannot just play well once or twice. You would have to keep that level throughout. But let's see how it goes, and we'll go from here. I hope we do not embarrass ourselves, but it is a challenge. It is a challenge for everybody.
You said that you couldn't practice that well. Have you? What do you think about TTS? Do you guys play TTS in Finland?
Yeah. Well, TTS, we took it to a training regime, and we have had scrims with countries, but TTS has its own challenges, and then it is not 40K, it is a simulation of 40K. So we have some guys who they just do not like it, or they have some technical problems that they just, the games last too long for them, and so it didn't really kick off, people didn't get excited about TTS, but we played a little bit, and especially during the time when no close contact games were possible at all. That time we played a lot of TTS, but so it was a lifesaver to keep at least keep following the meta, keep following what's happening, and what teams, what factions people are playing, and making army lists, and doing pairings, and so it was good for that. But obviously you need real tournaments, real tournaments with pressure situations. You cannot just play with your friends also. It's not enough, I can choose any great player in the world and play with him every day, but it won't be the same, you need to be in those situations where you're under stress and you're playing for something. And those tournaments have been missing for us a lot. Some of us have been traveling, to Alliance Open or Swedish tournaments and stuff like that, but we really need the Finnish tournament scene also to come back to life, and hopefully it will this year. So everything will be normal by WTC 2023.
Yeah, it feels like that the people who are most dedicated to the WTC or the international tournaments in general seems like they have stuck with it, and that's the general hope that after the tournament itself, when they go back, it will rekindle the local communities quite a bit, and it's at least that's the hope. That's the hope for most countries. And but I want to touch on the TTS thing as well a bit. You mentioned that the pressure situation needs to be tested, and I'll agree with that and add on a bit more, especially with the point that you cannot play against the same person many times and get much more out of the first time. It is a very different situation when you get to a table and you don't know who your opponent is, or if you know them, you don't know how they play, and it's you don't know their mannerisms, you don't know their play style.
Exactly.
Uh,
And a lot of basic stuff about tournaments as well. Like uh, the, the experienced players who play a lot of tournaments, they will know that younger and fresher players, they worry about things that they shouldn't. They worry about famous players. They worry about matchups. Like they overthink the whole thing. Okay, like and then you go to WTC and you need to play against England, you need to play against Manny, and you'll be thinking that, oh my God, this guy's the top player in the world. Oh my God, I need to play against him. And all of a sudden, you're throwing away all of your preparation. You're throwing away all of your all of your skills, and what you had planned, just because you haven't been in that situation before. So that only comes with experience. I mean, playing against them and seeing that, oh, this guy, or that guy, how many tournaments he won, and you actually see that he doesn't play any better than any guy you played before. He's just, maybe he's more active, maybe he's more into the hobby, he does his preparation better, he plays the best factions or whatever. But you'll only learn that by being in those situations and playing against them. And that's what I said, that it is a big loss, no matter how experienced your players are previously. If you need to take new guys to the team, you have to get them to tournaments. You have to get them that experience. But the COVID has made it very, very difficult for us.
for sure, it's you have to get, like you said, you have to get, as I say, kicked in the head a few times to get into the routine.
And one thing I will say, I haven't also last year and the previous year. I focused on a lot of things happening in my real life. I could have traveled more, and I will say that the Americans especially are a good example for all of us, in Finland, for example, and maybe other European countries, is that looking how much they actually travel to get to those major tournaments. They fly thousands of kilometers all the time to get to tournaments here or there or here or there. But then in Europe, we have this kind of tradition that if the tournament isn't in your home city or 100 kilometers away, you're not going. Oh, that's too far. So recently I've been saying to a bunch of guys that, for example, Sweden, they're organizing a lot of 100 to 200 player tournaments, and that it's really like a 1 hour flight. or a boat cruise away, that we should actually just, if we can't get anything organized here, we just need to basically migrate and start playing there, to get those events,
Yeah,
just like the Americans would. They would think, oh, that's a short way,
exactly. That seems to be a difference between the European scene and the American scene, where Europeans are, how can I say this without disparaging the entire continent, are expect more for less. They and maybe Americans are, let's say, do not desire much. For example, the American tournament tickets, when it comes even with the price, maybe it's the wealth, they pay more for smaller tournaments. They are like, it is nearly unspeakable, because I'm looking at it as an orga perspective in general. Like, it is really unheard of for a European tournament to charge, first of all, entrance fee, then the tournament ticket separately. It's like, oh, in order to get into the area, you have to pay $30 to just get a pass, and then you have to pay like $90 more to get into the tournament itself. Have fun. And the prices are much more expensive. People are ready to travel more. And I was talking this with the Luxembourg captain last year, I think. They have trouble getting their players to drive 15 minutes. And it's not a money issue either. Luxembourg is a very, very wealthy country, and it happens with the Swiss too. In those wealthy countries, they have enough armies, they have enough logistics, but they seem to have the commitment level seems to be quite different. Maybe it's the smaller communities in the country.
Yeah, it is a good question, but like, and we are both correct, but in a way. But then on the other hand, how many people
How many people can?
yeah, but on the other hand, how many people lives in the US? Is it 350 million people or something like that? And then they have maybe they have 20 guys who like to travel around the around the continent, or
That's
maybe
true.
how many of them? 15 guys. These guys are basically professionals, and of course they make up for the WTC team now. But so I mean, I wouldn't blow it out of proportion and say every American is traveling from Texas to LA to play there or something every month, but just like on a smaller scale, like neighboring countries in Europe, yeah, I think those players who do try to take this game sort of seriously on the WTC level seriously, I think they need to prepare to travel and maybe 3 or 4 times minimum per year, as the English are doing, even though they have the best tournaments on their island already, but still, if there's something in Netherlands or something in Belgium, they would go. It is not far, and we will need to do the same more than that. We did go to the last Belgian team championships.
I
When it
remember
was held.
seeing you there. I was a ref in that tournament.
Yeah. We did go there with 2 teams, but and that year we were planning to go to home nations as well, because we were very serious about our preparations. But then the whole thing got cancelled, So
Well,
and then it kind of took a step back, during the COVID, the whole thing, to get so invested in the hobby again when you have so many other worries.
that's for sure. In the end, you said some sentence that to get professional about this game, maybe we too, like in this conversation, we are overthinking things, and maybe we are forgetting that for a lot of people, even our players in our teams and countries, it is still only a game, and maybe we are overthinking it. When maybe we are just are we overthinking this toy soldiers thing?
Well, yeah, well, yes and no. Like this is the world we live in. Everybody takes every hobby so seriously these days, and like tries to maximize their performance any way they can, whether it's ordering some fancy, tennis racket from somewhere, or going through YouTube to improve their golf game, So in the same way in the video games, people use a lot of analytics to check what they're doing and how to improve, I can improve my performance by 1% if I do this or that, and it is no different in tabletop games. No matter how Games Workshop keeps like marketing this game, the players who have this mindset, they want to be the best. They want to do the best they can, and use every resource they have. So I wouldn't say it's overthinking. It's just a different mindset. Those who are in it, they will do everything they possibly can then.
As long as there is a numbers involved, people will try to find the best number they think is the best. They'll throw the data into an Excel sheet, and they'll try to get the final. Okay, A is better than B. Maybe it's marginally better. Maybe it's just randomly better. But if a unit does 4 damage instead of 3.8.
Yeah, and I personally, I'm like a strong supporter of the mathematical side of this game. I would never go and say that it's the only way or something. But if anybody would ask me how to win a tournament or how to win a match, I would just say, well, you just take the best units in your army, and then you try not to make too many mistakes, and that should be it, basically, because like the mathematical side of the game is sometimes so obvious, that these points are units are pointed incorrectly, or some faction is just, if you actually do the math, you could not even wipe them out if you tried. Even if the other guy did nothing, you would
literally
not be able to wipe.
You literally don't have the shots to wipe out. That's enough models. I don't have that.
So that kind of preparation is of course crucial, and I guess everybody does that. But what I mean about the the alternative ways is that oftentimes you hear from some players that they like to play more extravagant lists, like try to confuse their opponent by playing something that they're not expected to seeing. And yeah, sometimes that works for some guys, maybe some guys are just they're just good enough to pull it off, but I would not recommend that approach to a normal gamer who tries to make his way up. I just recommend, go with the value units, pick the best army with the best units, and
Yeah.
you're halfway there. You're halfway there.
And you are correct. The game is getting quite more complex compared to previous editions when you think of the number of units and the stratagems and the relics. However, if somebody finds something and somebody uses it in a tournament, it will eventually be like found out and it will be communicated around. So you don't really have like the shelf life on the surprise factor isn't that long, and even
that is one of the exciting features of this year's WTC now.
yeah,
Because of the upcoming change comes so near the tournament.
yeah.
That maybe this year we will have a change, that the meta will not be settled before the tournament, and the teams will actually hold back now. Nobody's talking to each other next month about what they find from the chapter approved, what are the best lists, everybody will be quiet. I don't think there will be that many tournaments in July either, so even though I agree with you 100% that there's so much data available now and everything leaks instantly to the internet, and some of this stuff obviously will be super apparent from the start, but maybe, just maybe, there will be some variation this time because of the if the game changes enough, if the points get changed enough, there might be different teams might come to different conclusions about the state of the game.
For the record of those who are listening, we are recording this at the 10th of June, and the Warzone Nephilim book will be out in about 2 weeks, 15 days to be exact. And we have no idea about the changes. We have obviously seen some Warhammer previews, but we actually don't know any of the points changes, maybe some of the stratagems or the secondary changes. They are unknown to us. And like Sami says, probably there will be, at least from the top teams, I don't think they will reveal their final lists by in any tournament in July. I think they'll test stuff out, but I don't think they'll fully commit to, even during TTS where there is no model restrictions. So I think you have a point about holding back, and it is both good that there are changes and we can see which team can adapt fast, but it's also a bit annoying that people have created their teams, people have made qualifications, lots of teams have make qualification structures that include hundreds of players, and now the setting they qualified under is irrelevant, which is not great.
Exactly, and maybe some of those players are what you could call like faction specialists, that maybe they were chosen to play a certain faction for the team. I know most of the top teams, they try to have everybody be very versatile, but you cannot really avoid that in most cases. Some players, they play one or two factions throughout the year mostly, and of course they're capable of these level of players are capable of learning something new quite fast, but it still won't be the exact same. And we don't know what to expect right now at all. I think the rumor changes look fairly big, and from what I've been talking with some other captains of WTC teams, you're right that some are a little bit annoyed by this, that we're speculating here, but I mean this might make this WTC a little bit about which team understands the new meta the best, and makes the best lists and the best team composition based on a very, very short period of time, instead of maybe and instead devaluing the long preparation and the a lot of hard work that some teams have done throughout the year.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely not ideal that either the two choices both are not great. It's either play a dead meta for 2 more months, where you're preparing for a tournament with, and that will be the end. It's essentially, except for the WTC, it's a futile effort. You might have to get some new models that you'll only play in that tournament, which is annoying, or like you said, throw away all the preparation.
yeah, and it has its drawbacks, but as it was seen in the captain's chat and other chats, team chats, most of the people still supported this. Most people wanted to play the new game because of the good things about that. And for Team Finland, for us, I think this fits us. It's actually a good thing. Like I said, we had our struggles with consistency. We had our struggles with getting enough tournament repetitions for our team members, and now actually, a lot of the preparation, other teams maybe they have prepared better than we have, and that's being thrown out a little bit. So maybe if we just have a good July now, maybe we'll just play every day of July, and we'll catch up, because we're essentially playing like a edition 9.5, like a little bit different game.
It's definitely an equalizer for sure. That it will be essentially be a race to. I think our list submission is July 15 or something like that. But it's essentially a race to July 15 where you have to prepare a lot to get to the list, because even maybe there are several missteps. Maybe you don't get to have practice, but you might not have the good amount of practice, but you might get the lists correct, and that might give you an advantage. Or maybe you get the lists entirely incorrectly, like a team or two find the niches and they just run with the WTC and they just clear house. That is possible.
Yeah, it is exciting, but on the other hand, what could happen is that you and me are both overthinking this, and Games Workshop actually ends up doing a very great job at balancing the game in 2 weeks, and then all of the lists are fairly balanced, and then it doesn't even matter that much if you took a faction that the other team didn't take, because the best guys will win, and in the end, I do think the best guys will win no matter what. But it is exciting and it is interesting no matter what.
Yeah, there's definitely lots to look forward to in the next few weeks for sure. But I actually want to not skip over something that we sort of skipped over in the end, which is the Finnish community by itself. I know this is going to be a segue, but I want to learn about the Finnish community. Can you tell me about the numbers of the players in general, competitive, non-competitive, and how are they spread out?
Well, the Finnish community is quite special in itself, that it actually consists mostly of competitive players. It is a small community and mostly competitive players, so it is a tough community to get into, because we do not have super majors or big tournaments where there would be dozens of new players playing and they would get games against each other, so there are barriers of entry, like example, if I play 200 games a year in a preparation to the WTC, and then some guys, they try to get into the hobby and they have to play against me, and I'm playing some faction with a 100 game win streak, what are their chances, and maybe
maybe they'll learn something from it, but they'll need to be able to
I don't know,
play.
But like our previous captain, the interim captain for the cancelled WTC, Vili Urpilainen, he actually tried to work really hard on this in trying to teach our community and to make the more experienced players more welcoming, and like to give us the task of being coaches, and to being like supportive, to make it possible for new guys to get into the ring. But obviously, this is not the only obstacle to playing Warhammer in Finland. Finland is quite a big country with a low population. We're 100 kilometers long country with 5 million people. And so there's distances, so it's not easy to get into tournaments per se for new guys, except maybe in the capital city area. The hobby is expensive, so there's sort of a risk, getting into playing it unless, you're really sure. A lot of the guys who are now the veterans, they play this game all their life. Similar story like I have, started when they're kids, when the game was even different, it was a lot less expensive back then,
You needed less models, and it was
Yeah,
the kid
yeah,
mentality is always different as well. Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
play a game once a week, and that's the highlight of your week.
yeah.
But
So now what we do have very competitive tournaments, but like I said, it's special. It's different than completely different than what you would expect going to a major tournament with 100 or 200 players, where you play 4 games against guys who, let's face it, they don't have any chance against you at all. They're tourists, they're casuals who come there to enjoy. And then these WTC guys, they just go there to win, and they'll play their basic game and they'll win. And then maybe 2 matches out of the 6, you'll play a real match, where you're being tested. But in these Finnish tournaments, we can have, so 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a tournament in Jyväskylä with 24 players or 25 or so, with a dropout. And from the 24, potentially you could have 10 or even 15 guys potentially who have been to ETC before, and and the rest of them, are still also with a certain, competitive mindset. Maybe you have only 2 guys from the 24 or 26 who are there to just have a good time. Everybody else is trying really hard. And maybe in Poland and maybe in some Russian tournaments it is like this also. But that is definitely a Finnish thing, that we have a small group, small tournaments, but highly competitive tournaments nevertheless.
That's definitely the case in some certain countries. With Poland, it's from what I'm told, it's even more amplified because the entire Polish community. That's what Piotr told me, is they have oriented themselves around team tournaments and the WTC. So, and if you're already in a difficult situation, if you are just a noob who is a bit iffy about the game, you have built your first 2,000 points army with some spare cash, and you want to have fun, and then you essentially get thrown into the deep end, and you
definitely.
you need some dedication to survive the challenge and become a player.
Definitely, but I think the Polish, they have to be doing something well to get everybody so excited about the WTC and to be playing in the ring, and to be considered, like, even if you're not going in the top 8 to the WTC, you've been in the ring, all year. Maybe they got 20 or 40 guys in the ring who have contributed, and then next year the captain, he has a lot of potential candidates from the previous years of training in the ring that will develop into top 8 players later. So he basically has a farm system where he's already nurturing the next generation of pros, and then a couple of those guys drop out because of many different reasons, and then he has guys ready to step in. Finland, we haven't been anywhere near as organized as that, but still the effect of ETC and WTC is it is the same. That basically the inner group who are, like I said, have a experience from nearly 10 ETCs played. They do basically plan the ETC and the WTC as the main event of all the year, and if they're organizing any events, every rules pack will use the WTC FAQ and will use the terrain, whatever is being played. So basically, every match you're having throughout the whole year, even if it's singles, it's still WTC rules and WTC scoring. And for this reason, for example, Finland never really started using even in the previous edition, in 8th edition, the ITC system, the ITC missions, and anything, because everybody just said, how does this help us to to win the ETC. It doesn't help us at all. It's a different game. So like so therefore it wasn't played. And ETC has been for basically for a decade easily. Has been extremely dominant. In the tournament mindset in Finland as well. Even though we have not organized the team as well as the Polish, for example, have.
Exactly, and even if you have 1,000 matches in a year, which is it's possible but not really, you would like, if you have designated the WTC as your primary event, hobby event for the year, you would want that all 1,000 games to be somewhat helpful to that goal. Like and this sort of rolls back to everything. If you have let's say a friend who's going to be in the team, who's dedicated and good enough, and who already plays Space Marine, that will probably make you not build a Space Marine army, and maybe you'll try to think of the local factions, like local players' factions, and so it has a rolling effect on even what army you play. So that's
exactly
very interesting.
And the rule set, regarding the rule set, it would be ideal, if people have talked about this a lot. It would be ideal if there weren't so many different types of Warhammer in the world, So in this edition, in 9th edition, the situation has got better, We haven't had the hard split between ITC missions and WTC missions like before, because that time they were completely different, like
they were two different games,
polar opposite games, exactly. And I did like ITC, I never liked Maelstrom cards, for example, personally, but I just played them because like this is what you'll play in the ETC if you ever get there, so you have to train. But now things have got better, so maybe now the big differences are only in the terrain packages or something like that. But that's more natural, because different formats between singles and team tournaments, and also to find the best possible terrain pack, you have to do sort of experimenting throughout the year.
And you're correct. Like the WTC is not like everybody's playing the same missions, which is quite better than previously. And everybody is like, ITC is now only a ranking system instead of a tournament format, which is sort of left a gap where the WTC seems to have filled, especially in Europe. And on top of it, the terrain rules are, although the maps are different, the terrain rules are actually the same. So it's not like you are going to a different tournament in England, for example, in your case, and you are going to see different terrain. You might see a different orientation with different numbers, but you are going to see the same terrain. It's like Maelstrom being gone is helpful. Games Workshop, by sort of rolling back in a few fields and sort of implementing the ITC into its actual proper missions, have sort of created a more unified gaming format. If you don't really have WTC will have ITC points as well, which means that the two systems are not distinct, are not the same thing anymore. They are distinct in practice, but also can coincide, which is good, which is all right. And
in the end, about the terrain, it is an attitude thing. If you're thinking the game in a serious, analytical, or professional way, the terrain is just one part of the game, and it is allowed to have different types of terrain packages for different tournaments. That only presents you with different types of challenges. Maybe it changes the meta, every table here has so many forests, or the ruins are like this or like that. And this is just a challenge for the players to try to adapt, like what does this mean for the army construction, or what does this mean for the pairing that they use terrain like this. Everybody has their favorite, somebody will say this terrain package is shit, or this is shit, or this. Nobody really actually thinks anything is perfect. So, it's just adapt or die,
Yeah, and one thing is, for us, I'll be honest with you, personally I find the WTC pack a bit too dense, but that's not by accident, that's on purpose, because I've spoken about this before. The reasoning is very simple, at least for the design, is we cannot let a game end on turn one. and that's our design goal. And because we are not going to have the WTC several times a year, so the odds will even themselves out if you get a bad terrain matchup or something. No, this is a once per year event. People travel thousands of kilometers to get there. We cannot have them have a bad game in that essentially ends on turn one. So it's better to have a slow start to a game and have a more densely terrain pack than the other way around.
It is a better experience. No matter what anybody says that the win was inevitable for the other player, regardless of the terrain, it very well might be so that an experienced player can see that this guy, oh, he got the first turn, he will win. But it is still a better experience because it is not a blowout during the first turn, and it actually does end up going to turn 5, and people get a chance to actually engage in the game. That is one of my personal grudges also with the game, that you don't actually play the game at all if you just deploy and lose.
Firepower has sort of, for some armies, it's quite high that they can just blow out most of the armies away in one turn, like literally wipe out in some cases, which is not ideal.
And competitive players, they don't really have a choice if they're signed up to the WTC or if they're going to the whatever main event they choose. Maybe it's a LVO or whatever main event of the year they choose. They have to play the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game. So if the game is about you choose flyers and indirect, and you invalidate the entire terrain package because Games Workshop made an army like that, then that's what you got to do. No point hating the player, but it's just like it's better if the game develops in the sort of way and the tournament packages develop in the sort of way that we do end up having a more intense and more competitive matches that could go either way.
Yeah, and but we are sort of getting to the end of our time, but I actually have a few. I still have curious about the Finland community because we are sort of getting into segues, which I enjoy. Don't get me wrong, but I would like to know a few things about the Finnish community as well.
All right.
As a captain, this is me as asking you as a captain. How will you pick your team? I assume, have you picked your team yet, or is it at the final stretch? And if you did, how did you do it?
Well, we do have a process of every year after the ETC or WTC, there will be like a sort of a grace period when everybody's resting, and then people just sign up to the ring, like who is interested to go to the WTC, and then those guys then who are signed up to be interested, get together and they will have a vote. People will go up for election who want to be the captain, and you can have as many candidates as you like, and people will vote, and then you'll choose a captain early in the year. We do not have any qualifying tournaments or anything like that, like some other countries use, but the captain is responsible for choosing the team in any way basically he sees fit, but it's always done collaboratively, so maybe the first 2 players are easy for him around Christmas or New Year's time, so he chooses a couple of guys, and then with those couple of guys they will help the captain and they will together get the team together. That's what we've done this year too, and we got 10 guys now ready and signed up to the WTC with tickets. 2 will go as coaches. We haven't set anything in stone who will be the coaches and who will play because of like we briefly talked before, there's so many stuff happening with the chapter approved and everything, so there's some flexibility there for us.
Okay, so it's more of a community effort more than the captain. It's more than a community effort than the captain simply saying, oh, I picked this guys, or a rigid qualifying system. So it's
no, nothing like that, and everybody keeps playing all the way until to the summer as if they still had a chance, and maybe they do. Captain tries to communicate as well as he can that if you play hard now, if you can commit, you could very well make the team this year or anything like that, So yeah,
that's
a community thing, yeah.
that's good to hear. Obviously, not every team or every nation can do that because of simple numbers. Like some teams, some nations have hundreds of players to pick 8 from, and that at that point you might need a more rigid system, or some nations that can have like the middle ground where the captain can still know everybody, but it's not too numerous yet, and maybe it's not feasible to have the community of it. Uh, but I do have one more question about how you pick your team. How big of a challenge is the financial part? Like, is there a segment of the community that cannot attend simply because of financial reasons?
Well, not for us. Basically, like I said, I think our youngest player, well, this would be a wild guess. I'll say like 24, 26, and going all the way to 40. But most of them are in the late 30s or something like that. So everybody's working and can finance an event like this, or multiple events like this during the year. And I believe if a situation like that ever actually came up, that somebody who the team really wanted to come could not come because of financial reasons, I'm pretty sure that others would just pay his ticket, to make it happen.
So that is more than most other countries do. I'll tell you that. So it's good. It's a plus for the Finland community.
Yeah, and it is because it's a small community, so everybody in the team really, they know each other. Like I said, if these guys have been together for 6 ETCs or 7 ETCs already, people trust each other and they know each other. So
okay, so you said that your 10 players have already been picked. From there, you have used. I reckon you would have an average skill and experience level. With that in mind, where would you place the Finland team at the end of the tournament?
Yeah, this is a really tough question. Obviously,
I
obviously, if I do not believe that we can place high, then I haven't done my job as a captain well enough, because it is mine and my co-captain Marcos' job to prepare this team. But like I said, this has been a challenging year for us. I do hope we make top 10, because that is sort of a minimum goal for us. I think Finland, when we do have our best players playing, I think we are a top 5 country in the world. But to go more high than that, it would require a perfect tournament from everybody for sure. Like I said, consistency and a little luck as well. But I think that would be the same for everybody.
Yeah, for sure, and I agree with you that Finland has, from the historical perspective, Finland definitely seems to have the potential to make top 5, and you guys have done it a few times already, and it's let's say it's also going to be very interesting because I'm obviously mentioning history, but who knows that in this 3 years since the last ATC, where people have shifted and the TTS has been a game changer, the 9th edition and the Nephilim book will be total game changers. So we're actually looking into a very, very dynamic situation, and all the records can mean nothing, or it can be just a repeat of the history. But go on.
Yeah, I will say this: all the pressure is on England and USA, because they're the ones who have been playing very hard for the last 2 years. So they've got the best tournaments and the most competitive tournaments the last 2 years. So I mean, they are the favorites, but to be the favorite is not a guarantee. There's a lot of tough teams they have to win to get there. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, and before my final questions, as we are already gone very long, and I don't want to hold you on because I know you might have an immediate emergency.
No, it's fine.
But do you have any shout outs for anybody, like any links to drop out? Is there a way that people can find Team Finland online, for example?
Yeah, we have a Facebook channel, but it isn't really used. The best way to contact us is in just get on WhatsApp or contact the guys you know. A lot of guys know the Finnish players already from previous years, so
Or they can't
you
contact.
got
They can just no. It's like they don't even know who to contact on WhatsApp. Okay, just get on the WTC Discord and ask.
yeah,
Is there anybody from
basically, yeah.
Finland here? And we'll direct you.
Exactly. Get there, yeah.
Okay, so this will be my bonus question. This is the final question that I ask everybody, and it's more of a market research more than anything else.
Mhm.
Can you describe your ideal WTC?
Well, the ideal WTC is a World Championship tournament where you have teams from the majority of the countries in the world that do play 40K with a balanced Games Workshop rules pack, providing for balanced matches, and a good tournament pack that everybody has agreed on, and referees, judges, everything organized from the tournament organizer to a acceptable level. Probably people would expect the ideal WTC to have a accommodation nearby, and that's it. The players will bring the atmosphere, they will bring the community, so that will be fine. It will be a great fun no matter what, and a great atmosphere.
So that wasn't a high ask actually. It was just a well-run tournament. If you just boil it down.
That's true. That's true. That is it. That is the ideal WTC. Just get everybody playing a good, balanced, and challenging game. Like let the best man win.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that into consideration. And I was planning to, like, me and Tom and Neil were planning to fuck it up, but now that you said it,
no, it's looking good. It's looking good.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation, and
thank you.
If you have any final words, this is the time.
No, nothing. Shout outs to my friend Ruud from Team Netherlands.
Yeah. The Dutch captain, right? Ruud's 10 bucks. I think that's the same. Perfect. Thank you for coming on, and thanks to everybody for listening. I wish you all a good day.
All right.